Okay, but which questions were false, though? Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer. Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only, and just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Okay, holy crap. You might as well just rename this entire case Thompson versus Taylor, because this is the most fighting that I've ever seen the two of them do, just in the back of my memory. And please, if I'm wrong, if there was ever a court session in the Bryan Kohberger case that was this heated before, let me know, because I'm telling you, this is the most energy that I've seen from these two, like, this whole time. Now, from what I'm understanding, and I have listened to this hearing now a total of like 4 times. 4 times. From what I'm gathering, the state had no idea whatsoever that a survey was even being conducted. From what I'm understanding, the state was told about this survey from a citizen. And at that point, even though it was pretty much suspected by Bill Thompson that it was the defense that was doing this survey, they weren't completely sure. And with so many media outlets and so many social media people out here reporting on this case and talking about this case, I mean, honestly, what other questions did he possibly have in his head about who this could be? Some TikToker, some YouTuber, somebody just going crazy, running amok in the case? I mean, honestly, the possibilities of what this could have been are sadly endless. But whenever Ann Taylor was reached out to about said survey, she instantly was like, oh, yeah, that's us. We'll meet together and we'll talk about it. Well, that wasn't a big deal at first. It wasn't until a few days later, I believe it was just a handful of days before the state was supposed to meet up with Ann Taylor on March 21st. So just a few days before the March 21st date, they then received police report, transcript, and because they had a recording of the call or like a transcript of the call that actually showed the questions, that's what like threw them off. That's whenever they were like, oh, no, this is not going to happen. We've got to do something about this now. Thompson then advised Taylor that he wanted to send a letter or an email over to Judge with the information that they were getting and with the attachments of the police report and the phone call, and that Ann Taylor would be CC'd on the email. Well, Ann said no. And her fight for that is that she didn't want her side of the story to not be included. But in my logical 2024 thinking, I'm like, okay, chick, you could have just literally responded on the email that you were being CC'd on. Like once Thompson sent it, you could have had your email response ready to go to paste it into the body and respond to the thread. You could have had that happen. So I almost feel like she's just like really nitpicky about things and she's overreaching the way that she is. I don't know. I don't agree with some of the things that she's claiming is happening here. Now, I am fully under the understanding that neither the court nor the state is upset about the survey itself. Judge even says he was expecting one. Like, he's never dealt with a case that had one. Thompson has never dealt with a case that a survey was conducted in. And Ann Taylor has never dealt with a case where a survey was conducted. This is a first for everyone, for all of them. But it's the questions. It's the questions, especially the fact that they're claiming that it's like a gag order violation for these 400 people to have been called and asked these questions. But Bill Thompson is standing up in a courtroom and reading them out loud on public record so that now thousands of people have heard these questions. Sort of hypocritical. Now, what has been the most interesting to me throughout this entire hearing is that it seems as if the judge and the state are very aware and adamant of the fact that there are some questions listed in the survey that are fake, non-truths, okay? And their worry, and this is where this is throwing me off. Their worry is that it's going to make Bryan look bad.
With detailed information, some of which is completely false. And not only completely false, but it's false in a sense that makes Mr. Kohberger look bad. It is creating bias against Mr. Kohberger based on false or inadmissible evidence. That's outrageous.
And look, the judge even says it.
I'm not happy about these specific questions, especially ones that are false. Then people hear that and they just get even worse sort of impression. Okay, Mr. COVID.
So that's weird to me, guys. That's weird to me because I feel like Bryan can use this after the fact. Like, let's say this goes to trial and he's found guilty. Is there a possibility that he could take this exact instance right here, where the state and the judge both came together in his best interest because of something that his lawyer did, and he can then file, what is it, inadequate counsel or something against Taylor? Based off of this now on very much the record evidence of the state and the judge being like concerned about his reputation, because I honestly don't understand. It's just weird. It's just weird. So we're going to go ahead and play the questions that were read out loud in court yesterday, and I'm going to tell you whether I've heard these things or not. Now, there's one thing in here that is drastically different, or at least tweaked to something that we heard previously. All right. We're going to stop in between each one of these little questions. Okay. Now, this is just a few. Let's keep that in mind. This is just a few of, I think, 30 or 40 questions that were on the survey. I'm not really quite sure, but in my brain, for some reason, I'm seeing 30 and 40. Okay.
Question. Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania?
Have you read, seen, or heard that Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' house in Pennsylvania? Yeah, the whole world knows that because it's in your exhibits. That's for the probable cause affidavit. And it was also spoken by your people during the press conference after his arrest. So, yeah, we all know that. Definitely not any sort of gag order violation because that was literally like day one stuff.
Question. Have you read, seen, or heard if police found a knife sheath on the bed next to one of the victims?
Have you read, seen, or heard that there was a knife sheath found next to one of the victims? Of course, the world has heard that because that is also like part of what the media has been telling us. Now, we knew about the knife sheath in the exhibits for the probable cause for arrest, but we didn't know the location of this knife sheath until months and months later. Like, we knew it was in the crime scene photos according to the exhibit for the PCA. We knew that it was on the bed that Maddie and Kaylee were found on. But when it comes to body positioning versus knife sheath position versus blanket, comforter, bed position, all those things, those details are new. Those details are all very much new. But the basic of what he just said, that's in the exhibit for the probable cause.
Question. Have you read, seen, or heard that DNA found on the knife sheath was later matched to Bryan Kohberger?
Again, something else in the exhibits that was released to the public for the probable cause order that was executed in Pennsylvania. So far, this is literally stuff written by Brett Payne himself, the person who is also in charge of this survey investigation, which is strange.
Question. Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger owned the same type of car recorded on video driving in the neighborhood where the killings occurred?
Yes and no, because in the probable cause exhibits, they're calling this vehicle suspect vehicle number 1, which makes a bunch of people ask a bunch of questions, right? But we've also been given 2 different sets of years for the vehicle that they were looking for. They have yet to show that they have any identifying marks on the vehicle itself that they have on surveillance that points to it being actually Bryan's car. Now, I know that there's a thing about the license plate, but there's a great possibility that's not the only car that looks like that could have looked like that in black and white nighttime camera that might be missing one of their license plates. It's actually a lot more common than people want to think.
Have you seen, read, seen, or heard if the cell phone tower data showed that Bryan Kohberger made several trips near the victim's home in the month before the killing?
That one. That one right there. Okay. So we've heard it was like a dozen times. So we heard it was like a dozen times since he moved there up until the night of what happened. Okay. But this information here, 7 times in 30 days. Where, oh, where, Ann Taylor? Where? Did your survey man get that little tidbit of information from any local media source? Because the number 7 has not been brought up in this case whatsoever. So where did that come from? How did survey man get those details to claim that he is literally pushing this survey out to the public based on just public information from local media? Where the hell did that come from? 7 in 30 days. That's very specific and not in the public.
Have you read, seen, or heard if the university students in Moscow and their parents lived in fear until Bryan Kohberger was arrested for the murders?
Have you read, seen, or heard that the victims' families basically lived in fear up until Bryan was arrested? I don't ever recall the families ever claiming one time that they were in fear of anything. In fear of not getting justice for their children, maybe. In fear of the case going cold. Yeah, cool. We've heard that several times. But in fear for their lives? Guys, we've never heard that, not once. Not once. So again, where did he get this information? Or is this just something being made up? Like, can he make up questions too? As I guess something else that I would like to know. Are all of his questions based on what he's actually seeing in social media? Or is he allowed to, like, make up his own bullshit? Serious question.
Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger said that he was out driving alone on the night of the murders?
Okay, well, that was said in public hearings. That's not violating a gag order either. That's literally what has been stated like several times on these hearings that were live streamed to the public and is in documents that were released by both the state and the defense. Either the defense telling us about it or the state complaining about it. How is that a violation of gag order? See, the only thing that I'm really having issue with whenever it comes to these is the 7 times in 30-day thing, because that's hella specific. And I'm really curious as to if that dude just like finagled the numbers from something that he already heard, because we do know that they're claiming 12 times in that area since he moved, like I just said. Okay. But what if he can just like finagle the info? And see, that kind of goes along with what I was saying the other day about how people are going to hear this crap and like telephone it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger stalked one of the victims?
And see, that's something that has been so pushed by like Banfield on, News Nation. That stalking thing has been pushed by like all of these medias. But like we discussed before and a million times here, all of these Paramount, Lifetimes, Hulu's, everybody that's been doing these documentaries on this case, talking to the Goncalveses, they let them tell this story about how they have proof that he was stalking them on social media, right? But they never can say that they can validate the claims. No one has been able to come out and say that they can validate the claims. Now, when it comes to stalking, there's no proof of that either. There's literally no proof of that either. Now, if you take them claiming that he was in the neighborhood or in the area X amount of times, and you put it with what's going on and you don't consider any other options, then yeah, it sounds like he could have been stalking one of them. It does, but there's no freaking proof. Something can sound like something and not be that thing,
Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger had followed one of the victims on social media?
Yeah, see, that's the one that we talked about. Now, one thing that really needs to be paid attention to here, because this is important. The defense team and Taylor, nobody on Bryan's side whatsoever had anything to do with the questions, the subjects that were asked, any of it. This Dr. Edelman went in and took all of the information from the local media stations, meaning the Idaho Statesman, meaning the anchor that works for the news station. I don't know his name, but you guys probably know who I'm talking about. The pretty faced anchor that we talked about from the Idaho Web Sleuth series that personally knew Ethan and Xana. He worked for the local news station. So this doctor was literally only pulling like Idaho, Moscow news. That's it. Now, the formatting and the way that these questions are being asked is, of course, the problem. And what the end of this hearing determined is that there's going to be another hearing. I believe it's on April the 10th for them to then discuss how the survey can continue. So see, Anne is not being told she can't conduct this survey. She's not. And the judge and the state both say that 1,000 times. Like, we literally just wanted to pause this so that we can assess what's happening here because the citizens seem concerned. And did you guys catch it, for those of you who watched it? Did you guys catch that on the morning of court, yesterday morning, the mother of someone who received this survey call called them to talk about it? And that goes to what I had said about how these people are going to get this fake information and it's going to be new to them. And they're going to be like, holy moly, what is this? Oh my God, I never heard of this before. And they're going to run to their friends and they're going to run to their mama and everybody else. And they're going to tell them what they heard on that survey. Duh. And that's also a sentiment in the court. Yeah, I said that. I'm sorry. But if you call me, if I'm living in Latah County and you call me and you say something, and I'm going to use the same example that I've been using this whole time. And again, it is an example. Okay. It's not a freaking fact. It's an example. If someone calls me from Latah County, because I live in Latah County and this case is going on, and the survey question is, have you seen, read, or heard that the DNA of Bryan Kohberger was found under Xana Kernodle's fingernails? If someone called me and said something like that and I had never heard that before, you damn straight I'm calling everybody in my contact log. And I don't really know what kind of stuff Ann Taylor was trying to pull here with the way that she did this, but I caught her in a lie. I caught her in a freaking lie. So in the beginning of this hearing, she makes it like pretty obvious that Dr. Edelman, the guy who's conducting the survey, wasn't given anything whatsoever by the defense. Nothing. He literally just pulled everything from social media. Now they're blaming the gag order for the reason why there's problems with the survey questions, obviously. But this doctor would have known that there was a damn gag order by doing his freaking research for this survey. Like, he would have seen that whenever he was going in and pulling all of the stories for these questions he had to create. Okay, that's number one. Number two, in the beginning, like I said, she states they sent nothing to the doctor. It was literally just like they commissioned him for the survey and no additional information whatsoever was given to him from the defense, which is something that the judge was like, okay, that's different. I didn't know that, because I guess it was sort of like not explained. Or maybe Thompson didn't know that because he didn't really have like a full-on conversation with Ann at the time, that the defense had nothing to do with the questions. But she can't sit there and state, oh, well, we didn't give him anything. This is literally all him pulling local news. And then towards the end of the hearing claim, oh, well, we did send him over the gag order, but something happened and he never received it. So we tried to send it to him, but he just didn't get it. He's got it now, and we tried before, but something went wrong in transition. Which is it? Did you send him shit or did you not send him shit? You can't say the two different things in the same hearing and expect us not to ask questions. Now, I do understand her sentiment of claiming, hey, I didn't do any of this. I commissioned this person to do this survey. They didn't need to know any of the case details. They only needed to know what case they were looking into. Nothing about the gag order was relevant, because if she would have known that the questions were so specific, then maybe she would have actually handled that. I'm just saying, maybe she would have, who knows? But she didn't do that. She didn't check the questions. She didn't review the questions. She just trusted this man to do his job. And this person has done these surveys before. We've talked about this and it's mentioned in the hearing. He did a survey not too many years ago in Kootenai County. Same concept. And he's done these all over the country, apparently in other states. So it's not like an uncommon thing. It's not an uncommon thing at all. The problem is the gag order and these very specific details. But again, my biggest thing is that they're sitting here and acting like the state and the judge are so freaking worried about what this is going to do to the way that Bryan looks, which I understand the whole fair trial thing. I get that. But it's just really strange to see the opposite side being worried about Bryan. It's just weird. That's the only word I really have for it. It's just weird. So whenever the judge said that this was like really ironic because the defense wanted this gag order too, the defense and the state should have been adults and got together and talked about this, because with the gag order in place, you'd think that just common knowledge or common sense, which, you know, doesn't exist for many these days. Common sense should have told Ann Taylor that she probably needed to put some stipulations on the types of questions and what the subject could be in those questions. Like certain details, regardless of if it was public or not, shouldn't be included in the questions. That's probably something that should have been discussed. But again, I understand her point too, because just from what we just went over, nothing that was read in court is anything that we hadn't heard before besides 7 times in 30 days. Now, Ann Taylor's upset because now her survey process has been paused for like 2 weeks, which isn't really a problem because it's just 2 weeks. It's just 2 weeks. That's not really that big of a deal. And the court's willing to give her 2 weeks back, reclaiming her time. So I don't really see the problem. If she would have just been like, yeah, okay, send the email to Judge, and sent an email along in the thread, the conversations could have been had prior. This could have been handled like a couple of weeks ago, and anything that needed to be done could have been done. And instead, this was a waste of taxpayer dollars. The survey has to probably be done all over again because, again, the survey itself is not the problem at all. The judge, again, even said he was expecting one to pop up eventually in this case. It's the questions. Now, again, Ann Taylor really can't take like too much hit for this because if she really was just doing her job, hiring a consultant when it came to the change of venue thing, which is a tool that has been used by several states as we're learning. And if she didn't have anything to do with the questions, if she let it be completely blind to her what was going to be being asked, then how much responsibility can she really take for this? Granted, I do agree that it should have been a conversation. Maybe not with the state because she's not wrong in claiming like I shouldn't have to ask permission from the state about the next move I'm going to be making on my side. I'm not supposed to do that. That's not how this works. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. And then I find it just insane too that in the courtroom, she's talking about how they need to do like a comparison, right? And they need to go out and like do surveys on 2 other counties. And they're like, which ones? Like, can you let the girl like do her job? She doesn't have to give y'all every little bitty detail as she's doing it. The work product is in process. So what the hell? But I don't disagree if the only thing that comes from all of this stupidity, unnecessary stupidity, is that the survey just has to be redone. The doctor is going to have to go in and reformat his questions to where they're more open-ended and not like yes or no, because it seems like that's what it was from the sound of those questions. It was like yes or no, have you read, seen, or heard this fragment of information, yes or no. It wasn't, so the Bryan Kohberger case, what do you know about it? Okay. And what do you know about the college students? Do you know anything about how they might have known him or anything like that? What kind of details have you heard about the case? Those surveys are probably going to take a little bit longer because it's not just upfront, yes, I've heard that, or no, I haven't heard that. It's going to be detailed explanations from the person. So I don't know how really well that's going to go or how long that's going to take because, they try to find every little excuse to push back everything. And Judge is even sitting there saying, I told y'all, if you need something from me, then I can, like that, meet with you and we can handle things. And now it's to the point where he's like, maybe we need to do weekly hearings. It's literally like watching 2 people getting yelled at by the principal. This whole thing, it was wild. Basic opinion on this. This whole hearing was a waste of taxpayer dollars. They probably could have handled this themselves if they would have used their brains first and, recognized the fact that there's a gag order that the defense team was adamant about having too. Okay, this isn't like she's trying to push back on a gag order that she didn't want. She totally wanted the gag order too. But maybe she just didn't know like the construct of the questions. I don't know, but I do know, like I said, all the research this doctor apparently did, he would have known freaking early on that there was a gag order in this case, literally by probably like the first article he pulled up. So I guess now that we've heard the judge and Bill Thompson claim that some of these things being told to the public are false, that means that the defense was actually not lying in their document, because remember, in their document, they were claiming that all of this was like social media rumors, social media, mainstream media, stuff that's out there in the public, okay? So which questions were false information? And if the courts know, okay, this is another thing. If the courts know for a fact that there's false information in this, should I be bothered by that? Because does that mean that like Judge knows more about the case than he should right now? Because he shouldn't really know what's true or false in this case until trial, right? Or is he just going based off of what Bill Thompson is telling him about some of these things being non-fact? Because the judge can't say that on his own accord unless he has seen evidence. And if the judge's whole job is to judge the innocence or the guilt of someone, okay, that shouldn't be happening until trial. Like, there's no reason for the judge, in my opinion, and again, I'm not a freaking lawyer. I don't want to be a freaking lawyer, okay? I'd probably jump over and attack somebody because I just can't deal with lying pieces of crap who try to sit there and lie about being pieces of crap. I just would not be able to contain myself. But it's odd to me that the judge can sit there and say some of these facts are false because to me, I'm questioning, how do you know that? How do you personally know that? And that could be a wrong way of thinking. Maybe it's normal for him to know these facts before trial. I don't know, but to me, it just don't seem right. Something that the judge said, and this is probably going to be like the last little thing, but something that the judge said that really kind of bothered me and made me kind of like side-eye Anne about how she's handling things. Ann Taylor apparently had a problem whenever the court came out and dropped us the IGG information about how some of it was approved to be given over to the defense. She was upset about that, which I don't understand that. And they kind of got into it a little bit, but I wasn't really quite understanding her meaning because on top of being like upset about it, she also said that there was a concern in recording what's been done. Okay, but if there's something being documented showing that you received some of the IGG work, then why are you mad about that if you have a concern for what's being done being documented correctly? That's hypocritical too. Okay, so that wasn't the last thing. Listen to this.
Because we've seen that the people retained by the defense cannot be trusted.
Do you guys think he's talking about Vargas too? Because that's the first thing that popped up in my head. But that's really it. Like, that's my opinion. I don't see a problem with the survey. If the judge and the state, and apparently the defense too, knows that the media is just out here giving false information all over the place, then why are they not stopping it? Why are they not stopping it? I don't know. That's it, you guys. I want to know what you guys think about all this. I know there's some comments left on the copy of the hearing that I posted last night, but let's have the discussion down here in this thread. Okay. And as always, if you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you were not subscribed already. See y'all.